Hello everyone, I'm Hannah Lloyd.
And I'm Charlotte Gilfillan.
Welcome to our podcast, Women in Wellies.
Each episode we will be inviting a guest to share their stories, experiences and lessons of working and living in rural Scotland.
We want to get to know the real women behind the wellies and share them with you, our listeners. Welcome to the first episode of Women in Wellies, where we share some of our stories as your hosts. How are you doing this morning, Charlotte?
Good, Hannah. How are you? How is snowy Ayrshire this morning?
Less snowy, but I'm really good actually. Ready to get stuck in after weeks of talking about this. So, yeah.
I know,
here we
it's
go.
taken quite a bit of planning, hasn't it? But we're finally here. It's very exciting.
Definitely very exciting, and I can't wait to share this with the world in a few weeks' time when it probably won't be snowy.
It probably will be. I thought we could start off by telling our listeners how we met. And you tell this story far better than I do. So over to you, Hannah.
Here we go. It's like a bad dating story. So I had recently moved to the Highlands, and I was at a networking event, and I overheard that Charlotte was also moving to the Highlands with her firm that she works for. And so I was like, made a mental note and headed home, and then reached out on LinkedIn with a message like, hey, I hear you're moving to the Highlands. Whatever way you say this, it sounds creepy. Here you're moving to the Highlands. I've recently moved here. It would be great to meet you when you get here. And she replied and said yes. Oh, it's like all the dating dreams come true. And then a few months passed, and Charlotte moves up, and I knew what day she was moving up, so I messaged her and was like, happy first day in the Highlands. And then we met for lunch, and I think the rest, as they say, is history. But we have become firm friends, firm champions of each other over that period, and supported each other through some challenges that we'll talk about in a bit.
Absolutely. It was the start of a beautiful friendship. But I think that you and I would both agree that trying to convert business contacts into friendships is not always that easy to do. It is something that we manage, though, and as you say, firm friends ever since.
I think the interesting thing about that is we both started from a place of kind of vulnerability and not having a big circle of friends in the area we were living in. So, when you reach out and you've both got that, you're both looking for that same thing, then the right person comes along at the right time and you can find loads of commonality, and then, as they say, it just works, these things. Do you want to share a little bit of who you are and what you do so that our listeners can get under your skin?
Well, if you couldn't tell already from the accent, I'm originally from the northeast of England, and I moved to Scotland to study for a degree in countryside management, what feels like a very, very long time ago now. Once I'd finished my degree, I actually started gamekeeping, and I began as a pony gilly on Lettew Estate near Pullew on the west coast, and ended up as a gamekeeper in the Angus Glens. Now, I moved into my career in land agency in 2009. That equally feels like a very long time ago. And I qualified as a chartered surveyor with a national rural property management firm, who I'm still with now. Now, in 2019, there was an opportunity to move back to the Highlands with the same firm, which I took, and I've been based in Bewley ever since then. Now, my work involves mostly managing privately owned rural estates, and I look after everything from forestry and farming to natural capital, tourism, diversification, renewable energy, residential property, commercial property, you name it, I cover it as part of my work. I'm really passionate about inspiring and supporting the next generation, and also giving women more of a voice in the rural sector, which is actually one of the reasons why we started this podcast in the first place. And I've also recently become involved with the Royal Highland Education Trust, which is a very worthwhile charity. Right, that's me. Hannah, your turn. Tell our listeners a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Thanks, Charlotte. So I always find it really difficult when people say, like, summarize who you are and what you do. So I'll try and keep it as brief as I can. But I live in rural Ayrshire, and for my mentalness, I'm renovating a farmhouse, which is full of surprises, let's say. Um, Going back to the beginning, I went to university to train to be a primary school teacher. Um, and you all know that didn't happen because otherwise I wouldn't be sat here. But now I am business development manager covering Scotland for a rural membership organisation, having worked in the property and construction sector as a marketer and business development manager for a number of years. And I am responsible for recruiting and retaining members, effectively responsible for building and nurturing relationships. Um, Beyond my day job, I also am vice chair of the Scotland Board for Women in Property, alongside a selection of other committee positions across Scotland, which is something that I'm very passionate about, and I'm sure you'll discover more why shortly. I never like blowing my own trumpet, but I am an award winner in my own right, and I won the Association of Scottish Businesswomen One to Watch Award, which, when I talk about what has challenged me, you'll probably make the link as to why that gave me such a massive kind of confidence boost. I'm a massive fan of outdoor swimming all year round, and I feel really lucky that that's given me another route to connect to like fantastic people across Scotland. I have a huge passion for and focus on developing relationships, connecting others, and supporting rural businesses and city-based ones too, to thrive through building really strong relationships between organisations, and hence why I love anything that will let me meet others. I also am really passionate about supporting and encouraging others to build their personal brand, shout about who they are and what they do, and to share how truly incredible you actually are, which is a huge, massive reason why we're doing this podcast, and the power of a network and the power of asking that network for something um, for something is so powerful, and I guess that's the other reason I'm here, because I want to kind of leverage my network to the next level and help people. People want to help each other, and they want to help people that they know, they like, and they trust. So why not ask for help and use your network in that way? Right, I'll get off my high horse now. That's me.
You and I obviously talk about this quite a lot, especially relationship building, developing your own personal brand. But I do genuinely love it when we do, because there is just so much passion and enthusiasm that shines through, and that in itself is really inspiring. Now, some of you may or may not be aware that Hannah and I are both doing the Scottish Rural Leadership Programme at the moment. And I think I can safely say it's been a really positive and thought-provoking experience so far. We've both met some amazing people, had some great experiences, and I think it's given us the opportunity to reflect quite a lot on what motivates us and what inspires us. So, Hannah, why don't you go first this time and tell our listeners what inspires you to do what you do?
What inspires me? People, like, at the absolute core of what inspires me to do everything, what inspires me to do the rural leadership program, what inspires me to do my day job is people. Hearing stories, sharing stories, being inspired by the challenges and opportunities that others have faced and seized and overcome, and very much a like what led you to being here today type story. I think, as I just said, I went to university to be a teacher. There's lots of bits that I didn't mention that happened along the way that led me to be where I am today, but they all come back to people. And I think the other thing that really inspires me is a desire to be like better, um, a desire to learn, to grow, to develop, to push myself beyond my comfort zone, because the best stuff does not happen in your comfort zone. And so pushing beyond that is really inspiring to me, and supporting others to do that too, and encouraging them to step beyond even when they're a little bit scared. Yeah, for me, it comes back to people. And then I also think massively inspired by rural Scotland. The scenery, the beauty of it, like you turn a corner and nothing ever looks the same. And like I'm sat now looking out the window and I can see like the pink hues of sunrise coming up across the fields, like absolutely stunning. But also going beyond that, rural Scotland inspires me with like the people, the resilience, the businesses, the like everything that's going on across the sector, that it's so easy just to drive past somebody's like road end and think that they are not doing anything that's innovative. Or and then I've met farmers through rural leadership program, actually there's a number of them who've got, you know, milk vending machines, or and then they've added homemade cakes and then they've added coffee, and you think, you know, they're so much more than you think on the surface. And also was hearing the other day about one that, you know, they just look like this little tiny farm and they've got like an international business just from that one tiny location in rural Scotland. I think that's absolutely incredible and massively inspiring. So now I've rambled about what inspires me. Charlotte, I'm going to flip it back to you. What inspires you?
I was just thinking we could probably do a whole episode just on what inspires us, as there's actually so much and it's quite difficult to narrow down. For me, I would probably have to start with my work. So I would describe land agency. It's not a job. It's not a career. I mean, it's both those things, but it's a vocation, and no 2 days are ever the same. You know, there's so much diversity of the role. I think one of the major things that inspires me is that I want to have a real impact, whether that's on people or whether that's on the wider natural environment. What I really want is to be able to leave things better than I found them. Empowering other people is another one. Creating environments where people feel inspired and they also feel supported to succeed, and that's actually an area that I'm working on quite a lot at the moment. One of the catalysts for that being the Scottish Rural Leadership Programme. Personal development is massive for me as well, as I know it is for you, Hannah. It's something that's really important to me. Any opportunity to learn, any opportunity to improve. I very much subscribe to every day is a school day. I think there's something to learn every day. One of the biggest things that inspires me is challenges, something I certainly haven't been short of. And it's finding ways to solve problems or to overcome obstacles that helps you grow as a person. And I am a firm believer that the grass isn't greener on the other side, the grass is greener where you water it. And I think that's a really important life lesson, and something that I try and live by, certainly. So yeah, lots and lots of things that inspire me.
Alongside our inspirations, there's always going to be bumps in the road, challenges, and things that stop us achieving what we want to achieve, and that we have to overcome. So, Charlotte, any massive ones you want to share?
I think one of my biggest challenges was actually moving back up to the Highlands. When I moved up, although I was working with the same firm, moving up the same firm, I didn't really know anybody up here. I had no network, I had no clients, I didn't really have anything. So I was pretty much starting from scratch. I'd moved up in the July 2019 and was so excited to get started. I wanted to hit the ground running. I had all these plans of all the things I was going to do for business development and how we were going to grow the business and the life I was going to make up here and all the things I wanted to do. But I had only just got the chance to get started, and then COVID hit in March 2020 and it all came crashing down. Now I know that obviously the pandemic's been a massive challenge for all of us to overcome, but I was in a new place with new people, and it was really a very isolating experience for me. I had to learn to be really innovative in the midst of what were unprecedented times, and it was hard work. So you're on your own for a lot of the time. You're trying to build this business. You're trying to do all the things that you wanted to do and that you wanted to achieve, and it's really hard work, and there was no easy fix to it. it took a lot of commitment, it took a lot of consistency to try and build a business and a personal life up here in spite of all the ongoing challenges. But I think what I learned from it really was that I'm probably a bit more resilient than perhaps I'd given myself credit for previously. And I did have the ability to adapt and overcome circumstances when it was needed. And actually, I found I was capable of doing a lot more than perhaps I'd had the confidence to do previously. And it goes back to what I said earlier, sorry to repeat myself, but about the grass isn't greener on the other side, the grass is greener where you water it. And I absolutely wholeheartedly believe that, because it was tough coming up here. It was tough establishing a network. It was tough building a life. But I put the effort in, and now I'm reaping the rewards of that. And I can honestly say it was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made, and I wouldn't change a thing about the experience now, because I've learned so much about myself by making the move. So I think that's probably my biggest challenge.
I don't need to say anything in response because I've just nodded to everything you've just said. My I would agree, wholeheartedly. Um Having moved to the Highlands in April 2019, so a few months ahead of you, and I was at everything. I very quickly grew my business network, but making it a personal network was incredibly challenging. And I remain hugely grateful and humbled by the fact that I have a fantastic network of friends in the Highlands now who I know will be friends for many, many years to come. Sorry guys, you're stuck with me now. But they will be there for the long term, but it was really, really tough, and the pandemic in particular was a big challenge for me. As have said, I'm very much a people person, and not being able to see people was a massive, massive challenge. Um, I think the other thing that for me, when I kind of was like thinking about these questions that came to the fore as a massive challenge, is myself. I have for a long time struggled with kind of self-belief, confidence, um, imposter syndrome, call it what you like. And I feel hugely privileged that I've been able to work with various people along my journey to kind of overcome that. But I do think it's fair to say that when it came to business development and networking, I was a fake it till you make it type, and I vividly remember going to early networking events in my time in the Highlands and having to like convince myself to walk in, having to convince myself that I wouldn't spend the night on my own in the corner, that I was actually a nice person and that people might want to speak to me. And I think a lot of my confidence and self-belief that I now have has come from putting myself in positions of being very uncomfortable. And that comes back to what I said before, that growth doesn't happen in your comfort zone, and I have grown to be a hugely different person than I was when I set out on my professional career, because my comfort zone doesn't scare me quite as much as it used to. Leaving my comfort zone doesn't scare me quite as much as it used to. But yeah, definitely my own biggest challenge is probably myself.
I know. I mean, it's very hard to believe now that knowing you as I do, that you would walk into a room and be worried about networking, because you now walk into a room and everybody knows you, and you'll chat to
Yeah, but
anybody.
that's why
And
it's not so scary anymore, because usually most rooms I walk into, I will know somebody in some way, or somebody will know me in some way. And so you've lost that edge of you being a complete stranger. And that comes back to what I was saying before about why I think that building a personal brand, having a personal brand, being out there is so important. Um, just this, just that last week I was having a conversation, and somebody's like, you always come up on my LinkedIn, and I'm like, because I put myself out there, and so I am known, and people know my face, and they know that I'm probably going to be there. And I actually even had somebody say to me a few weeks ago, oh, well, during the day I was thinking, oh, I don't really want to go to that event. Oh, I've got a lot on, there's a lot happening. And then they were like, oh, but Hannah will be there and she invited me, so she'll make me feel bad if I don't turn up. not even through something I would directly do, but through the fact that I would post on LinkedIn about how amazing the event was, and then they would feel they missed out. So basically, I gave them FOMO without doing anything. So sure enough, they showed up, really benefited from the event, made some great contacts, and actually, for me, that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad reputation to have. And I always initially made me very nervous when I was at events and people would say, "Oh, you're Hannah. I've heard about you." Now I'm like, "Oh, great. Who told you about me? Where did you hear about me? How did you find us?" Um, because it's the power of putting stuff out there. Um, so yeah, and I think it all ties together.
Yeah. Do you ever have to deal with any negativity?
No, no, I've not been trolled yet. The main negativity is people just think, "Oh, I could never do what you do," and I think I don't have to deal with negativity because somebody much wiser than me um, said that if you're going to put stuff out there, you're going to put yourself out there. You have to set yourself boundaries of what you're willing to share, and what you're not, means that you don't make yourself at any point you don't make yourself too vulnerable, and therefore um I have been very fortunate, I think, not to face a big level of negativity. And I'm not really someone who puts out anything hugely controversial. I'm not expressing wild political opinions or the things that people are really passionate about. I'm just sharing what I'm doing and where I am, and opportunities and that kind of thing. I'm not sharing like really, yeah, really obscure political opinions or really controversial um hot topics. I'm not I could give lots of examples of the very hot topics, but I won't, because then that'll make this controversial and people will think I'm really behind them, and I'm not. So having shared some of our challenges, lots of what inspires us and who we are and what we do, we thought we'd conclude with the question that we're going to ask all our guests, and I'm sure that we will have lots of bits of this to share over the coming episodes. But um, advice to the next generation, advice to others working in the rural sector, or even if you're not working in the rural sector, I know my piece of advice is gonna apply. So Charlotte, do you want to go first?
My bit of advice to the next generation is don't be afraid of failure. The fear of failure will kill far more dreams than failure itself. One of my most favourite quotes is actually from Thomas Edison, who said, "I have not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that don't work." I absolutely love that. Failure is scary, there's no two ways about it. There's a lot of stigma attached to failure. It's not really something that's talked about as much as there should be. But what we've got to remember about failure is it's also the foundation to success. And through failure, there is an opportunity to learn, there's an opportunity to adapt. It makes us more resilient to change. So my advice is don't be afraid of failure, take calculated risks, work hard, don't give up on what you want to achieve, dream big, and it will all be worth it in the end, I promise.
Yeah, so I'm going to start by seconding everything Charlotte said, because great advice. When I looked at this question, a quote came to mind, and the quote is, "It's not bragging if it's based on facts." Because for me, my biggest advice is to build your personal brand. Be an advocate for what you're doing. Be an advocate for who you are. Share your success, because success breeds success, and if you share it and inspire others, then opportunities also come your way, and ultimately there is no one else to do it for you. Well, sometimes there is other people who will share your successes, but there's nobody else to shout about who you are. And while many of us work for larger firms, bigger businesses, this is advocating for yourself within that firm as well, to seize opportunities, as well as advocating for yourself in the wider market. And I think it's a really powerful tool to build your personal brand, and so people know what you stand for and who you are. And if anybody ever wants to talk about that, like, absolutely come my way, because I love supporting people to do that and to build their profile in that way.
So that's a wrap on our first episode. Over the next few months, we will be joined by some inspiring women from across rural Scotland, and we hope you will enjoy listening to their stories and experiences.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, follow us on Instagram at Women in Wellies Podcast to stay up to date with all the latest news.
And you can email us with any questions on womeninwelliespodcast@gmail.com, and we'd love it if you could leave us a review and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Until next time!